Good morning, everybody. If you are on the stream, we're going to get rolling here in a couple minutes. Our apologies, we're running just a little bit behind, but we will have a show. Once again, if you're on the stream, thanks for joining us. We're going to get started here in about a minute or two. We have done minimal sound checks this morning, so I apologize in advance if anything is too loud. We're working with a wide cam shot this morning, as you can probably see. Something a little different. But we're going to get started. What's going on, everybody? This is the Going Broadway podcast. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm Alex. Cole is here. We are on episode 10, Cole.
Ooh, double digits.
Double digits, hard to believe. What's going on?
Oh, you know, excited to talk.
Yeah, this might be one of our, I'll just say it right off the bat, this might be one of our more controversial shows, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but as you can see, we're working with a wide cam shot today. We had a little bit of technical issues, and I can only get one camera to work at the time, so this is what you got, and who knows, we might use this format a little more going forward, but by default today, this is what we got. So, again, thanks for joining us this morning. We're just going to recap Dynamite and NXT from last night. I told Cole before we went on, I've literally only watched like 5 minutes of NXT. I did catch all of Dynamite. And then, who knows, depending on time, we might recap Raw from this past Monday a little bit. But I really want to get into our Mount Rushmore of wrestling discussion. So if you're on with us right now, start leaving us your thoughts and comments on who would be on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling. There are no wrong answers. Some people like to base it on, basically who helped the business as a whole. Some people like to base it on who their favorite wrestlers are. Some people like to base it on who is, in their opinion, best in the ring. So I'm interested to see everyone's thoughts on that. But for now, let's, what do you want to tackle first? Do we want to do AEW or NXT first?
Well, you watched AEW, so let's start with that one.
Let's start with that one. All right.
Yes.
I remembered.
He got it.
I'm struggling a little bit to remember like all of the sound bites over here. I actually need to update my little master key. I don't know if you can see it on the camera. I've got like a master key right here that tells me, but I need to update it. So, all right. So let's tackle Dynamite first. And I told Cole before we went on, our recaps need to be a little shorter from now on. So that means we might not even be able to recap everything going forward, just because, again, like we've mentioned countless times on our show, there's just so much wrestling content out there right now. It's hard to recap everything. All right, so, excuse me. So we are live from Austin, Texas, home of Dustin Rhodes, and we'll get to his match in a little bit. But they opened up with their tag match, and I found it interesting, and they've done this a couple times where, you know, they've done the intro and the pyro and everything, and they've done the wrestler entrances before they've gone on the air live. And I'm actually, it makes for an interesting feel whenever they go live and they're already in the ring ready to go. So I kind of like that aspect of it. It just kind of gives it a unique feel to it. And I like how they announce and build the match in terms of like it feels like it's like a big feel kind of match because they introduce, you know, the wrestlers. They even gave an introduction to the referee, which they, you know, they'll do that for like boxing and UFC fights. This is the first time I remember them doing that for AEW. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Pretty sure they do it on all the title matches.
You might be right. This is the first time I maybe paid attention to the fact that they did that. But anyway, so the match itself, I in my opinion, I really feel like their match on the cruise was a lot better. Just this match it had a few spots where it just felt like it was more thrown together than it was talked about or rehearsed ahead of time. I don't know. What are your thoughts? It felt messy. That's kind of the best word I can come up with.
I was actually shocked with the match because they had like no Hangman Page like real selfishness parts in it, in my opinion. Like it didn't really tease any part of that storyline.
Right.
So to me it was just like if you were to put Kenny Omega and Adam Hangman Page in a match with SCU. Like it just seemed like a normal match. Like there was no storyline to it. There was no build up. Like it felt like they just put on the normal match that they would put on.
I agree. The only thing that really stood out is they were kind of teasing and I don't know if this is going to be a long-term thing or if it was just for this match, but they kind of teased a heel-ish gimmick for SCU. Like they're pulling like the heel spots and the heel maneuvers that, you know, you normally don't see out of SCU.
That could be just for that match too. You just don't know who.
It could have been. It was just an observation. I was like, I wonder if they're gonna, you know, push this as a thing or if it was just for this match. Yeah, I agree. I would have liked for them to continue to push the Hangman aspect as far as being more of a loner, even if whether he turns heel or not. But I was surprised, like you, that they didn't.
I mean, it was a clean win.
It was a clean win. So Hangman and Kenny got the win, but the end was felt very awkward because Kazarian grabbed the rope right after the 3 count. So I don't know if it was a botched ending, if that was just if they did that to make it feel more of a competitive type match where he just barely missed grabbing the rope on time. It had a very awkward ending. If they wanted to go that route in terms of, again, make it feel like it was a more competitive match and he just barely missed the 3 count, he probably should have grabbed the rope maybe a split second later. It just felt too close to the 3 count to, you know, for me to wonder if that was a botched ending or not. Yeah, the match itself, I mean, I expected Omega and Page to win. But then after the match, they do the tag team schmaz to plug the battle royal that they're going to have next week. The winner of that match will get the tag title shot at Revolution. I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit, but then they announce next week that there's going to be another tag title match with Page and Omega against Lucha Bros.
I'm interested to see that.
I am too. I'm kind of wondering if they're going to put the belts on Lucha Bros and somehow, and if they go this route, I wish they would have, not I wish they wouldn't have dragged it out this long. But if they're going to split up Page and Omega and have them wrestle a match at Revolution, I really feel like they should have split them up earlier and then built towards that.
Isn't Kenny fighting Pac at Revolution?
He's fighting Pac. He's fighting Pac at the Dynamite Go Home show before Revolution.
Got you. Okay.
That's going to be the Iron Man match. Now I don't know if they're going to have a rematch at Revolution with certain stipulations. I don't know. That's one
thing.
thing.
You would think they would do the Hangman Page turn at Revolution.
You would think.
Which would mean that whoever wins that tag team battle royale thing would be the team that would probably get the belts.
Here's what makes the most sense to me. If you're truly going to separate Hangman, then you have Young Bucks win the battle royal, and then you have them win the tag belts at Revolution. And then that's inevitably what would finalize the split up. Now, I'd be interested to see, kind of a side note, how they would go about with being the Elite Series if Hangman splits from them, because he's a big part of that series. And I don't know, just kind of a thinking out loud kind of thing. John Bull, sorry I'm late. Good morning, gentlemen. Hey, John, how's it going this morning? Again, if you're just joining us, thanks for tuning in. We're doing a wide cam shot today. If you probably noticed the change already, we had some tech issues and we got started a little late. I can only get one camera to work. So pushing on with Dynamite, the Dynamite recap. So Jim Ross had a little sit-down interview with Santana. I watched / heard bits and pieces of it. I was going back and forth in and out of my living room, so I heard most of it. It was basically Santana saying, he had a rough upbringing, blah, 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 whatever. It basically built towards his match with Moxley later in the night. It was more of a time filler, in my opinion. It seemed like they tried to drive it home as a very emotional promo, and it may have been. Again, I didn't watch all of it, but from what I saw, it was just kind of like, again, a time filler. Cole, did you feel that way, or was it actually?
To be honest with you, I didn't watch it.
Oh, okay.
I didn't watch the promo. I kind of skipped through it because I wanted to see the matches. I didn't really want to see.
Yeah, I hear you.
His promo. His promo did, him as a singles wrestler doesn't really interest me.
Same here.
I knew he was going to lose.
Anyone that they throw, any tag wrestler that they throw into a singles match, I'm very ho-hum about it.
When I know, like if it was one of the Lucha Bros, I would have watched it because they have proven they can do solo wrestling, and if they ever were to break them up or put them on solo runs, it would make sense.
Right.
Same with maybe some of the guys from SCU But when I know that those two are a tag team, they're in the inner circle, and there's no plans for them, it just was kind of like, eh.
Mm-hmm. No, I hear you. So they do the Darby Allin challenge for Revolution with Sammy Guevara, and then the Sammy and Dustin Rhodes match comes on. It wasn't a fantastic match, but I found it better. A, better than I expected it would be, and B, it was better than their match that they had, X amount of weeks ago, however long it was.
I think it was just a good setup to finally get Jake Hager in the ring.
It was. The thing I liked most about this, so after the match, so Dustin gets the win, as he should. I've never liked the having the hometown wrestler lose, which WWE is big on for whatever reason. I never understood that. If you want to send the crowd home happy, you have the hometown wrestler win.
It just depends on who the wrestler is sometimes too. Sometimes they do it if the wrestler's big enough.
Well, if the hometown wrestler is a face, if it's a heel, then whatever. Also, if it's like a lower card guy, yeah.
Like if you're not known that well, like they'll announce
Right.
that that's your hometown, and they'll be like, "Hey, you're gonna take the L."
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so at the end of the match, Dustin Rhodes gives this really fired up promo. I enjoyed the promo. I thought it was it more than served its purpose. It had a personal element feel to it. It felt like Rhodes was he had went after Hager in terms of his his MMA career, saying his MMA career has been a failure, and now his AEW career has been too, even before it's begun. Inevitably, it sets up the match for Revolution, and I'm actually excited to see that match.
I think Hager comes out on top. I don't think you can have him lose in his first match.
I agree. I mean, it's either going to be Hager winning or it'll be like a double DQ or a double count out or something like that. But inevitably, I agree. I think it makes the most sense to, Hager's first match, give him the win, and then, build from there. So then they have another promo with Shivani and Britt Baker.
Terrible.
It was just, for the most part, it was terrible. The thing that got me to laugh was the whole, what was it? She basically, whatever restaurant is popular in that area.
Was it In-N-Out?
No. I'm going to read this real quick. But basically she basically made a very heel comment about
Whataburger.
That was it. So she basically said something along the lines of, you chubby Whataburger lovers or something like that. However she phrased it, that was probably the loudest crowd reaction of the night. And I found it to be hilarious. The rest of the promo was awful. I agree, in my opinion. Just take away the microphone from Britt Baker.
It's not because she's bad on the mic. It's just who's writing this? Most of the things that the AEW has done so far has been at least above average. I'm not going to say it's excellent or it's great, but at least it's above average. It's right above that line. This to me is below average, like writing. One, she's not feuding with anyone. She's feuding with no one.
I'll say this. I feel like the promos have, from the first one that she did a few weeks ago, have very, 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 very slightly improved week by week. But, I mean, that just goes to show how bad it was the first week because, like you said, I agree. This is still a below average promo. And like you said, I don't know if it's the writers, if it's whoever's giving her the script or whatever to work off of in doing these promos, or if she's just flying off the cuff. I don't know.
But if she's flying off the cuff, she needs to stop.
Exactly. Well, she needs to stop regardless until they get better writers to
do like they did with Brandy Rose. Do the right thing. Just call it a quit. All right, you tried it, cool. It's not working. Or if have her feud with somebody to where they can promo against her and make the promo better.
Unfortunately, I don't think they'll do that just because they've already dropped one storyline. I don't think they'll willingly do that again. But it makes you wonder, where are they going with it? Because it's just, she's coming out, she's doing these promos with Tony Schiavone. It's the same thing every week. She rips on him for his history as a barista at Starbucks. She did that little shtick. But it's going nowhere. Like, the promo basically just ended with fans booing her, and then she hands the mic back to Schiavone, and then that was it. And I mean,
they set it up like she's going to feud with Nyla Rose now, but or whoever was going to win the belt. But
well, so here's my thinking. They took, well, and we'll get there in a second. I'll come back to that. I'm going to get ahead of myself if I say what I was going to say. Just a couple of quick comments on the stream. Austin says, Whataburger, Josh, Whataburger, LOL. Josh says, I thought it was a decent heel promo. She's getting good heat. I agree she's getting good heat, but the promos themselves are awful. The writing needs to improve. If she's flying off the cuff, she needs to stop. And it's just...
It does feel like a Vince McMahon written promo.
It really
I agree with him. Yeah, it basically they're just taking her past and say, hey, go make that a heel.
I don't know. I feel like Vince, when he does suggest or write promos for people, depending on who it is, sometimes it'll fall flat, be awful. Other times it'll be really good. So I can't really base it off of...
These feel like Damian Sandow, like when he first came in the WWE promos, though. She just comes out and berates nobody. Like Tony, why are you picking on Tony Schiavone? Like, why is that even part of the storyline? Like,
100% agree.
It serves no purpose other than people are just booing you, which is, I guess, if that's what they want is her to get booed, then you accomplished it. Now put her against somebody.
But it goes back to being heel heat in terms of, okay, I don't like you, I'm going to boo you, versus a heel heat that is, you're just terrible on the microphone and I don't want to listen to you anymore, so stop. That's what I feel like it is. If it's heel heat in terms of, she's giving a heel promo, but she's good at it, that's one thing. But it's just awful. So, Josh, I've got to disagree with you, man. I appreciate your opinion, but I don't think any of her promos have been decent. It gets heat, no doubt about that, but it's a different kind of heat in my opinion. So, anyway, moving along to what will be probably the most controversial, few minutes that we've done in our podcast. So, we have Nyla Rose versus Riho for the women's title. So, I'm just going to cut right to the chase. While it was a decent match, Nyla Rose comes out on top and she wins the title. Now, for those of you that may not know, Nyla Rose is an openly transgender wrestler. We've touched on in a prior show with Tessa Blanchard, who won the Impact title, like the men's title. Just to kind of recap on that, I'm totally against the whole men winning women's titles and women winning men's titles. I get that it's just a show. 100% get it. But if you're going to have the route of, again, at least women winning the men's titles or vice versa, whatever, if you're going to go that route, then just don't have gender-specific titles in your company. Now, I get that this is a different situation, and I'm not going to go into, my personal or sociological, political, etc. stances, whatever the word is, as far as the topic of transgender. This is solely based on the competition aspect. I think it's atrocious that you have somebody that is openly transgender that you put a women's title on them. Here's why. Again, this is nothing to do with my stance or view on transgender as a whole. Again, we don't push that stuff on our show. We try to keep it as wrestling based and wrestling focused as possible. However, this goes back to the competitive advantage aspect. Again, I get that it's just a show. I get that it's pre-planned. We all know what wrestling is nowadays. We all know pro wrestling is storyline. It's a men's soap opera. I 100% understand that. But if you're going to go the route of wanting to put a title on Nyla Rose, then because of the fact that from a anatomic standpoint, she is obviously bigger than any other woman you have on that roster. If you're going to put a belt on her, put her in the men's division and have her win their mid-card title. If you want to go that route, it makes no sense to me. And again, I'm leaving my personal feelings, stances, whatever you want to call it, out of this. This solely has to do with, and I had a conversation with my wife about this last night. So I feel like this is something that is on a larger scale that is encouraging an intergender sporting phenomenon in terms of, women trying out for the NFL. I've read things about, the Olympics combining men and women for certain events or all events. And I'm 100% against that because in most cases, in most sporting events, and I'm going to get off this soapbox shortly, just because of the competitive advantage that men have, you would rarely have women winning any of these events. In the Olympics, again, women trying out for the NFL. It's just, it doesn't make sense to me. Again, I sound like a broken record. I get that it's just a show. I get that it's fixed. But if it's really going to make any sense, it didn't make sense for me whenever Riho won the belt in the first place, because realistically, is 95, 100-pound Riho going to beat a 250-pound Nyla Rose? No. Anyway, stepping off my soapbox, and I'm actually surprised we didn't have any comments on that, which is fine with me. So, Nyla Rose wins the belt. Here's another thing that doesn't make sense to me. So, with AEW having their split screen whenever they go to a commercial, so at this point, Nyla Rose has walked to the back. She says something to Tony Khan, but all you can hear is the commercial. You can't hear what's actually on the split screen of what's going on Dynamite. She's saying something to Tony Khan. She hugs him, and then Kenny Omega comes in the shot. And then they have kind of like a verbal dialogue back and forth, whatever. But you don't know what's going on. You don't know what's being said. And I think what AEW needs to do is, for those times where it looks like it's going to be important for storyline purposes, you need to tell your audience what happened during that commercial break. Even though you can see it, you can't hear what's going on. And I think it's important because the week before, you had Pac and Omega's back and forth with Riho in the shot, and then that's when Nyla Rose attacked her. So it seems like that there is maybe an interweaving of storylines, but you don't know what's going on because there was no sound during that dialogue. Anyway.
I'm interested to see if that's on purpose. If they eventually interview Kenny and, ask him what was said there, or if that plays a role. Honestly, I'm happy the belt's off Riho. I'm glad we're away from that, because I haven't been very impressed. Not that she's not a good performer.
I agree. I don't think she's a believable champion.
I'm at the point now where, like I've told you, they have enough women to have a good women's division. We just haven't had it yet. It just hasn't really sparked anything. And so I'm totally for a Britt Baker, Nyla Rose storyline. I think the belt is eventually going to end up on Britt Baker.
I think they need to put the belt on Hikaru Shida.
Yeah, but here's I keep looking at the women's division, and like most of these women who I would be like, yeah, I could see that, they're not on TV as much as the others.
Right, and
Britt and Nyla have been the two probably most consistent on being on TV. Riho's not I don't even see her she's been the champion pretty much since they've started, and she's been on TV 3 times.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, now that Riho doesn't have the belt anymore, how often or how little we're going to see her. It's just unfortunate, though, because right now they only have the one program each week, 2 hours, and they have AEW Dark that's an hour. Is AEW Dark an hour?
It's 3 matches, so I would assume so.
I think it's an hour. I just guess I've never paid attention to how long it is. But and then you've got the being the Elite Series, but that's really it. And unless you watch AEW Dark, you're seeing very limited talent-wise. And even with AEW Dark, again, if they're if they've only got 3 matches on there, at best you can feature another. Let's say hypothetically, those are all tag matches, which they won't be. But let's say you have 2 tag matches in a singles match, then you're featuring another. What's the math on that? Another 10 wrestlers. So I don't know. But I'm interested to see once they get their new program going, if it's going to be like if they're going to push it just as much as Dynamite, because you've got the element of, and I'll just equate this to Raw and SmackDown. So, Raw has always been viewed as the A show, but that's because Raw was on long before SmackDown. Same thing going back even to the WCW days. You had Nitro was the A show, and then Thunder was the B show, but that was largely attributed to the fact that Nitro was on before Thunder. I shouldn't say largely attributed. They tended to feature more of the lower to mid card guys on Thunder, so that was kind of their doing. But there's still that stigma there that will Dynamite forever be the A show, or will it be in like a 1A and a 1B show? Chosen Boy says, I'm still waiting for more character development in the women's division so far. I've only seen that from Britt Baker. Yeah, 100% agreed. That's what we were kind of just touching on. And they have a good women's division in terms of talent. It's just that they don't, like you said, they don't feature them enough to where outside of Britt Baker and Nyla Rose, that you don't really know a whole lot. I mean, they pushed Chris Statlander a little bit for 2 or 3 weeks, and then she kind of just fell off the face of the earth. I don't think Riho is going to be featured as much now that she's not champion. I could be wrong. I mean, because I know she's got that relationship with Kenny Omega in whatever degree. I don't know. So
that's my guy. What up, Chosen Boy?
And Austin says runtime on Dark varies week to week. Yeah, I thought an hour seemed short, but I know a lot of Dark is just kind of plugging their Dynamite events and just promos and things like that. So, but I think another problem with Dark is it's on YouTube. It's not on network television, and so you have to get people to be made aware that you can't access this on public TV, or not public TV, on your local TV, whether it's satellite or cable, whatever. Hey William, how's it going, man? So I think I'll transition off the women's division and just quickly recap the rest of the show. So MJF and Jungle Boy have a match.
It's pretty good.
It was actually a good match. I'm interested to see in 3, 4, 5 years where Jungle Boy is in terms of where he's at on the card. And they even said it before the match started. They said in 5 years, this could be the main event of a pay-per-view. And I agree. I mean, I think they're both talented in the ring. MJF's good on the mic. I think Jungle Boy would have to somehow develop either mic skills or give him a mouthpiece, especially if he still has the Jungle Boy gimmick. But we'll see. Wardlow, to end the match, Wardlow hands MJF his ring, hits Jungle Boy with it, gets the 3 count. And then after the match,
tease Luchasaurus versus Wardlow,
yeah,
which I thought was interesting.
And that was kind of a nice surprise in terms of, are you going to build towards a Luchasaurus Wardlow match at Revolution? I mean, they're not doing anything else, so
might as well.
At least as of right now, let's say hypothetically, if Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy win the Battle Royal, the Tag Team Battle Royal next week, then anyway. And then, I'm just going to quickly breeze through this. Pac has a promo. Then Jericho and the Inner Circle take their seats in the balcony section or whatever. And then the Santana Moxley match happens, which I'll be honest, I didn't watch most of it. I only caught the end of it. Moxley gets the win. I forgot to mention earlier in the show, and I thought this was, I'm kind of on the fence that they brought this up ahead of time and not just saved it entirely for the end. So Jericho announces that Jeff Cobb is going to be kind of like their bounty hunter to take out Moxley before Revolution. So Jeff Cobb is of Ring of Honor and New Japan fame. He is a super, super awesome wrestler for being a big guy. He doesn't have the classic big guy move set. If you've not watched one of his matches, I'd highly encourage you to go check him out.
You can watch him on Lucha Underground too.
He's on Lucha Underground as well.
As the owner's brother or whatever that they locked in the cage. Forget his name. But.
So they announced that earlier in the night, but then they have a beatdown at the end. And then once they've had Moxley already beat down, which at this point has already kind of felt like it's just been drawn out. I don't know if they ended the match too early and they had to kill time to end the program. But then once they've effectively beat down Moxley, then Jericho signals for Jeff Cobb to come out. And I think it would have made just as much sense to have Jeff Cobb come out unannounced, because either Jeff Cobb or you don't. I mean, if you're watching live and you don't know who Jeff Cobb is, when Jericho announces that he's going to be on next week, more than likely you're not going to take the time to look up whoever Jeff Cobb is. And if you do, you're not going to be, you're not going to have time to watch a match just to see how good he is. You're just kind of like, oh, he's another name. So if you bring him out at the end, those that do know who Jeff Cobb is, they're thinking, wow, this is a huge, I shouldn't say huge. This is a pretty big surprise. And it would have served its purpose, again, for the audience that knows who he is. So
my question is this a sign that they are working with other independent promotions and kind of, or is Jeff Cobb signing? This isn't just a one-off thing like I thought it was when they first announced that this is 2 weeks now that he's going to be on AEW.
So that was my first thought, but then I read, I think it was PW Insider that said this, he is completely a free agent. AEW reached out to him directly. They didn't go through Ring of Honor or anything like that. They reached out to him as a free agent, and as of last night, I guess he's not under contract to anybody. So that was my first thought, because I'm thinking, okay, well, excuse me, he's still with Ring of Honor. He still has committed dates to them. So my thought immediately was, okay, cool. They're going to somehow form a partnership with Ring of Honor. And then that also led me to thinking, so between that and last night, Marty Scurll posted on his Instagram, he basically had a photo of like a cartoon version of himself, but then it said, "Your friend is not dead." So between those two things, I'm just like, okay, this could be really cool if AEW forms a partnership with Ring of Honor. But then again, I read that he's a free agent, so I was like, crap. But nonetheless, I mean, I'm still holding out hope that the AEW will start forming partnerships with whoever, whether it's Ring of Honor, New Japan, and again, that'll just go back to conversations we've had previously about, if you're contracted to a specific company, do you want to go the route of allowing your talent to work elsewhere? Anyway.
Montanza. Thank you, Chosen Boy. That was his name.
Montanza. All right. Jim Johnson, I believe he's commented on what his Mount Rushmore Pro Wrestling is. We'll get to that in a little while. Let's recap NXT real quick. from what Cole told me, it was a good show. Like I said,
It's pretty good.
I literally only watched like the last 5 minutes of the program, which actually the last 5 minutes I watched was the overrun time for Cole and Kushida, but we'll get there in a little bit. So looks like the first match. Well, actually, they had a Roderick Strong promo with Velveteen Dream.
He actually, like, his music hits, he comes out and like goes straight to the ring, no gimmick, goes straight to the ring. Starts talking about how Dream put his wife and his kid on his pants, and was just disrespectful and wants an apology, all this stuff. And then Bronson Reed came out. And if you remember from the prior week, they had attacked Bronson Reed, and Roderick Strong hit him with a flying knee.
Right.
So Bronson Reed came out and said, hey, Dream's not your only problem. You got to worry about me.
Yep. Now, not to get off topic, is Bronson Reed, who was he with before NXT?
I don't even recognize him, which is crazy because I tend to watch most of the prominent independent things that are out there.
Right.
And I don't recognize him. So if he is somebody, to me, he had to have some kind of major changeover. Now, he's Australian, I believe.
Okay, so that's probably why. So he probably didn't wrestle in the States until he came to NXT.
Because he keeps, like, on this show, I don't know if it's true or not, but he keeps saying you've heard of British strong style. Well, let me show you Australian strong style.
I got you. Okay.
It was a good match, though. Like, actually, Roderick Strong and him have a good match. The Velveteen Dream coming out was teased. And it looked like Bronson Reed was going to get the win. Then when he jumps off the top rope, Roderick Strong hits him with the flying knee and wins the match. And then Dream does his promo. And so I thought it was interesting that they had Strong get distracted and then still win the match. Like, it kind of swerved you just a little bit.
It's funny. I need to probably stop relying on this website for recaps because they totally went out of order on this. They said the Dream promo was before the match. Anyway. That's neither here nor there. So
the dream promo, though, almost had like this kind of heelish vibe to it, but the crowd loved it. You know what I mean? Like, it had this like.
I think that's what they're going for because so back in the day, we kind of touched on this last show. So or the week before, last Thursday show. So Velveteen Dream channels Rick Rude, so to speak, with having tights that has Roderick Strong's wife,
Marina.
Yeah, thanks. His wife Marina, her face on his tights, and then on the back it says, "Call." Does it say "Call me up, Marina" or something like that?
Something like that.
Anyway,
yeah.
And that's what Rick Rude. For those of you old school fans out there, Rick Rude did that back in the day with Jake Roberts and his wife. I don't think it said anything on the back or anything. But Rick Rude was a huge heel at the time, and it got me to thinking, I wonder if they're going to try to push Velveteen Dream as a heel. But if that's the route they're going to go, it's not going to work because
he's over.
He's over. If they're going to push him as a heel, he's going to be a cool heel that gets cheered.
Not to mention, it's just Roderick Strong's heel. So you putting him against Roderick Strong, who's also heel, doesn't help at all. But it was a good promo. It just, I was very impressed. That was a really great way to me to start the show off. It was a little dry with the Dakota Kai Candice LeRae match. I mean, it was a typical Dakota Kai Candice LeRae match.
Yeah, and to me, it wouldn't have made sense to have Candice LeRae win the match, so you knew a Dakota Kai win was coming.
It's just a setup takeover because that's the Sunday, and Tegan Nox and Dakota Kai is on the card, but it's not really talked about because no one really cares.
Yeah, it just seems like NXT as a whole is becoming. I'm not speaking for everything, but from start to finish, it's unfortunate that NXT to me is becoming a little more. Maybe dry is the correct word. I don't want to say stale because they're still, obviously with the
they're
Velveteen
great matches.
The matches are good. The Velveteen Dream Velveteen Dream gimmick or not gimmick, whatever the word is. I'm trying to
promo.
Not the promo. Just the general direction they're going with this storyline is fresh. So I don't want to say stale, but from show to show to show, it just seems like each one, little by little, is becoming a little more dry. But maybe that's because NXT has spoiled us for so long, and we want, the next show to be just as awesome as the last one.
I also think when they did the Survivor Series thing where they got the real big push on that, I think it set it up for NXT to then explode, but they pushed certain people on those shows too, like the Survivor Series run. It was like Ciampa, Keith Lee.
Right.
Like they had certain people they pushed. So now that they have to fill a whole card and still keep people entertained, they have to find ways to integrate some of these people who are key parts of their show, but aren't really known. Like Candice LeRae has been in their women's division, but putting her in a match with Dakota Kai, who's also been there, but no one really knows her, it didn't really help.
And it's kind of unfortunate because Candice LeRae is probably, I would say, in the top 3 in terms of in-ring performance on their women's roster that they have.
Between 3 and 5. Yeah, like she's good. She just doesn't ever really get over. Like she never gets that final she could be champion. You know what I mean?
Well, and that I think she's doing all she needs to do to get to that point. That's where creative and writing come in, because if you watched any of her stuff from, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, whatever, whenever, she was with Joey Ryan, they had, what was it, the world's cutest tag team or whatever it was, but they had matches with the Young Bucks in PWG, and the spots that she was able to take in terms of...
She's a warrior.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely guarantee you her pain tolerance is much, 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 much higher than mine ever would be. I mean, if you've ever watched any of her stuff...
Well, no wonder why she's with Gargano.
Well, exactly.
Which, speaking of him, that Cameron Grimes Johnny Gargano match after that was probably the match of the night. I mean,
I read it was good.
It was really good. I mean, Cameron Grimes is underrated. Cameron Grimes can put on a good match.
Cameron Grimes is the former Trevor Lee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And he's good. And then you put him with a guy like Johnny Gargano,
that sounds like a takeover-ish match.
They had a match, man. Like, had there been some storyline there, had there been some build-up, like, that would have been a little bit more time. That would have been a great, main event match, and I was really impressed. Which then takes us to the Lio Rush Angel Garza match. I like Lio Rush winning because it signifies to me that Angel Garza is going up.
Yeah, I think it's pretty evident, even though they've said he's just they've said they're keeping him on the NXT roster, but I don't think it makes sense for him to, even if you're bringing Andrade back. I think you keep Angel Garza with them and make some kind of a stable with those two. And
I just don't think they're ready to tell you that they're moving him up yet, which is fine. But he's going to be on Raw. He's already getting over on Raw as a heel. Might as well just leave him there. Why push him back down?
Which kind of tells you how good he is, because if you go from being a super over face in winning the Cruiserweight title and also, proposing to his now fiance and the crowd loving it, to becoming a full-on heel within 3 weeks, 4 weeks maybe, you're doing something right.
He's just good on the mic. He's got really good in-ring ability. I mean, I just don't see, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I just want to read a couple comments real quick. William says, also Ring of Honor has partnership with NWA with Marty versus Aldis being scheduled. Correct. We talked a little bit about that either this past Monday or the Thursday before. I am interested to see what happens. Again, if you're watching us and you're primarily just a WWE or AEW guy, I encourage you to watch Ring of Honor, watch NWA. It's a great time to be a wrestling fan. There's a ton of content out there that you can check out. I think you'd be impressed with Ring of Honor. I think you'd be impressed with NWA. I think you'd be impressed with New Japan Pro Wrestling. So, Chosen Boy says, I wonder when Roderick Strong will be ready to be received as a face. I know he's not there yet, but one day a turn from the faction is inevitable. Roderick Strong, we won't spend a whole lot of time on this, but Roderick Strong is kind of an interesting, not to steal Jeff Hardy's trademark. I don't think this is trademarked. Roderick Strong is an interesting enigma because I think if you take him out of Undisputed Era, I'm very conflicted if he would thrive or not, whether he's in NXT or Raw or SmackDown, or if he would just kind of get lost in the mix, because
He needs a manager.
I think he needs a manager, and I still think, I feel like as much as he botches in the ring, I feel like that brings his, because he is great as an in-ring performer. He's great in the performance sense. He's great in the psychology sense. But I think he's just botched so much over the years that's just been kind of that label's been attached to him. And so I think that kind of maybe, at least personally, kind of makes me wonder if I could see it going either way. So
I like him. I just think a lot of his promos run dry, which is why Undisputed Era helps him out, because Adam Cole can cut such a great promo.
Adam Cole's very good.
Which is why Adam Cole will be a top guy in the company for years to come, barring any injuries.
Yep.
Roderick Strong, on the other hand, he's really good in the ring. I kind of like him in tag team wrestling too. If they could find someone to really,
I agree,
put him with, because like Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly, I like them as a tag team, and I don't really want to see them split. So I'd like to see them stay in tag team wrestling. I like Roderick Strong. You can find him a solid tag team partner to put him with a main roster. He could get over there.
I agree. We're going to finish recapping NXT within the next few minutes. If you're on the stream, start letting us know who is on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling. We'll get to those comments in probably about 10 or 15 minutes or so. With NXT, finishing off the recap, so you have a quick squash match with Bianca Belair and Santana Garrett. I think it's, I don't know what their deal is with Santana Garrett, but if you've watched any of her stuff, well, exactly. But if you've watched any of her stuff before she came into NXT, they brought her to NXT for a reason. I'm surprised they're using her for a squash match. At least, if you still want Bianca Belair to get the win, at least have them have a competitive match. I don't know if it was just one of those things they were running short on time, but this is not the first match that they put Santana Garrett in where it's just been a quick.
I think it was to build her up as like an actual competitor for Rhea, even though we know she's not gonna win.
Well, exactly. Well, she's a good competitor. You don't have to have her in a squash match to show that. But we also know, like you said, she's not gonna win. You're gonna have a Rhea Ripley, Charlotte Flair match at WrestleMania. Period.
Unless they throw us a 180, which you got to understand, WWE is notorious for doing this. Unless they throw a 180 and they have her win it and they do something completely different at Mania on the flip of a switch, because they could.
I'll tell you what, if anybody that bets on wrestling bets on Belair defeating Rhea Ripley and actually does defeat Rhea Ripley, I'd be interested to see what the betting odds and like the betting lines are for that and how much money somebody could win.
To me, it was just a build up for Belair, but in my opinion, they shouldn't even had her in a match. Don't even have the match. Just have her come out
promo.
And just cut her promo.
Exactly.
Because that's what she's good at. She's good at cutting promos. Don't get me wrong, she's a great in-ring performer, but she's good at cutting promos. And I just didn't understand. The match just didn't make sense to me. Like, it was just unnecessary.
Agreed. And then I guess they kind of recapped the Dusty Classic with the Broserweights winning.
They did like some weird promos with them where like they were on a duck boat, like paddle boat, and they were trying to get to they're like trying to push them as like an actual tag team now, right? And
I don't know what they're doing.
But like they're doing these, like, it almost kind of feels like that, like a Hell No kind of promo. Like there's some comedic, like Matt Riddle's trying to do like this comedic relief kind of thing, but you have Pete Dunne, who's just kind of like whatever, and it just kind of feels like the whole Daniel Bryan Kane thing. Like Kane's just straight face the whole time, and Daniel Bryan's being funny.
Yeah.
And so like I don't know, like it's not getting over with me though. Like
I agree, it's not resonating like it should.
Matt Riddle's funny. Like I told you, I thought his promo 2 weeks ago was phenomenal. I thought he was funny. I thought it was great. But like I just don't understand where they're going with it. Interested to see what happens in their match this Sunday, if they actually win the belts and they get their push as a tag team, or I would actually rather see Pete Dunne turn on him and set up something for a later date.
Yeah. Chosen Boy says, I think Bianca will end up going to the main roster without ever winning the NXT Championship. 100% agree.
Yes.
I don't think they're ever going to.
Kind of like Lacey Evans.
Exactly. I don't think they're ever going to put the belt on her, but I could very easily see her becoming Raw or SmackDown Women's Champion at some point. And then to conclude the show, Adam Cole and Kushida. Again, just to reiterate, I only caught the last 5 minutes of the match, but I caught Adam Cole winning. You don't, even though they tease it like they do with pretty much every NXT main event, they teased Kushida getting the win with that armbar submission or whatever he does. I forgot the name of it. I know there's a name for it. I'm not good with remembering.
This was the first match I've seen with him where I was impressed.
Agreed. At least since he came to NXT, this is the first time I watched, and I didn't watch the whole match.
He got pushed heavy right when he came in, like he was going to be this like star, and I just hadn't seen a match where I was like, okay, I see that.
Right.
But maybe it's because he fought Walter, and he's been in a couple tag matches, and he fought Cassius Ohno when he first came in. Like, he's feuded with a lot of bigger guys, and maybe that limits his moveset. This match with Adam Cole, who's also a phenomenal performer, I was impressed. I enjoyed the match.
Yeah, I again, the last 5 or 6 minutes that I was able to watch, I was impressed with Kushida. I've watched him before he came to NXT, whenever he was with Ring of Honor and New Japan. He's a great wrestler. I just, for whatever reason, since he's joined NXT, his matches haven't resonated with me, and I know he's better in the ring than he had been, but like you said, it could just be the type of matches he's been in, the opponents he's had. So the program ends with teasing the title match this Sunday with Cole and Ciampa. Obviously, it's the go home show, so something's going to happen at the end with those two. And I like the fact that they didn't have them be like, they didn't have any kind of physical confrontation. They just had them, talking crap to each other at the end, and
it was kind of a cheesy end, though, right? Like Ciampa says, "I'm taking my life back," and then he says, "Over my dead body." And
right.
I was kind of like, oh, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, it was what it was. I agree, it was a little cheesed out, but it served its purpose, in my opinion. So,
there's like 3 or 4 major things on Raw to recap. One,
I was gonna say, I'll let you recap Raw real quick. I didn't really.
Shayna Baszler. Is this too early to tease Shayna Baszler versus Becky? Like, we still have Super Showdown. We still have Elimination Chamber. We still have. Then we have Mania. We have a lot of shows to fill. Is this a long buildup that we're gonna see?
I think they pulled the trigger at the right time. I just think it's stupid that they did the biting of the neck. I don't know what that. I don't know where they're going with that. It serves no purpose.
That was an interesting. Like I said, that was extreme. Like her to come in and bite her, and it had like such a draw right there. Like, it just weird. Love the Street Profits win. Finally got them on TV. But really, that
in
was
a match.
That was more of just to set up Riddick Moss winning the 24/7 championship. Love MVP. All right, like I'm always gonna bring an MVP. I love that he was out there. I love the tease of him being like a manager. And honestly, I think they put him with the right person as a manager. He would get somebody over because he cuts good promos. Love the VIP lounge. I thought that was a great little promo for McIntyre to get over. Angel Garza versus Cedric Alexander. Obviously, it's a good match for what it was.
Well, they're burying Cedric Alexander, and they're burying him hard. It's like, so I read that McMahon, so Heyman wanted to push him, and McMahon just disagreed, didn't see anything in him, and ever since then, it's just been a Cedric Alexander burial. That's not to say he can't and doesn't put on good matches. It's just, don't ever expect him to get the win unless they pull a swerve.
Yeah, true. I I don't know. I I like Cedric, but I just don't know where he fits in on the roster. But Sarah Logan versus Rhea Ripley. Interesting. I like Sarah Logan. She's not really good at cutting promos,
No, that was pretty bad.
but I like her as an in-ring performer. I thought this was an interesting matchup. Obviously, we saw that didn't end too well for Logan, but
yeah.
Bobby Lashley versus Ricochet. I like these two fighting against each other.
I'll be honest, I didn't watch it. I didn't watch that match.
I like Bobby Lashley is a great in-ring performer. So like these two fighting, I was actually very impressed when they did the triple threat match with Rollins. Like
I think if you pull Bobby Lashley out of this storyline with Lana, he would feel more appealing to me in terms of like actually wanting to watch him. You know, because I agree he's good in the ring. I think I've been so soured with this storyline that I'm just kind of like I don't even have a desire to watch any of his matches because, yeah.
So, like, my thing with him, you've noticed the Lana stuff has kind of dwindled down just a little bit, which is good. Because I think they're trying to slow it down because they want to have them rematch Rusev at Mania, is the rumor right now, and then have Lana turn on Lashley.
Well,
I don't know how true that is.
I've read that Rusev is off TV because he's having another issue with management behind the scenes. I don't know if it's a contractual thing. I don't know if it's a money thing, but
he's been off. It's just an interesting storyline to say the least.
I mean, he just disappeared from TV completely.
Obviously this was a setup for Ricochet to look like he could beat a Brock Lesnar type build, which he's not. But
right.
Randy Orton comes out, he speaks, kind of talks, getting ready to talk at least about some of the Edge stuff. Then Matt Hardy comes out, which I thought this was an interesting person to have come out and promo against Orton.
Well, they did this to write Matt Hardy off WWE television altogether. I mean, he's gone.
Right. And I get that to an extent. Matt Hardy came out. If you watched wrestling, you know that Matt Hardy and Edge have a very extensive past with tag team wrestling, putting tag team wrestling on the map. Then Edge actually having a real life affair with Matt Hardy's girl.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting. Obviously, Hardy's over it. He's remarried. Edge is over it. He's not with Lita.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting. Obviously, Orton RKO's the mess out of Hardy, and like you said, writes him off, which Hardy inevitably is probably headed to AEW here shortly. Aleister Black versus Tauza. Exactly what you thought it would be. Aleister Black knocking him out. They got to put Aleister Black in something more prominent.
I want to read this comment from Chosen Boy real quick. He said, I had no interest in watching it. Honestly, they've run Bobby to the ground. When he's on my TV, I change the channel.
But that's sad to hear. You know what I mean? Because Bobby Lashley is better than what they're giving him to work with. And so I'm hoping they get away from this. They get him back to being – because when he first came in, it was like he was getting pushed right to the top of the line.
Right.
And then they just dropped the ball on him. So I'm really disappointed to see what's happening there. Back to Aleister Black. They got to put him in a mid-card somewhere. If you're not going to fast forward him to the top of the line and get him in that kind of a run, you need to put him in a promo with Andrade or somebody and get a belt on him. Something. I'm done seeing him squash people for no reason.
Exactly.
The Viking Raiders, Kevin Owens, Samoa Joe. This is a rematch. I feel like they just did this because Samoa Joe had that little minor injury, and they didn't get to hit all the spots that they wanted to hit.
Yep.
So that was that match. It was good for an 8-man tag match. But honestly, I'm just ready to see some of these feuds conclude, so we can get to actual feuds that need to happen.
Right. All right. So that concludes our recap portion of the show. I wanted to touch on a couple quick, I guess, rapid fire stories. Chosen Boy says, I wonder what these Aleister promos are leading to. I hope they have great plans for his WrestleMania opponent.
He's going to have to get moved to SmackDown for that to happen.
Yeah, I don't think he's going against The Fiend. I'm pretty sure that'll
be Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
The big dog.
Jeez. I feel bad for Michael Cole.
Here comes the big dog.
I wonder if Michael Cole, like, if that was his idea to say that, or if that was like a line that McMahon fed him and say.
I feel like he did it one time, and then like people made fun of him for it or whatever. Alistair versus Cena, I could see that. That, you know, especially if that would be what set Cena off on a heel run.
So that's a great segue to a couple of these rapid fire stories I was going to go through real quick. So it was announced this past week on, was it Backstage? One of WWE's non-wrestling programs. I feel like they've got like 10 of them now. So John Cena is coming back, and allegedly he has been given full creative control on whatever he wants to do with WrestleMania. So his opponent, any opponent of his choosing, whether he takes the W or the L, is completely in Cena's court. So that story came out, I want to say, that's yesterday, the day before.
You think he could even pick an NXT guy? Because you gotta understand, John Cena is really big on some of these NXT guys. One of them being Velveteen Dream.
Yeah, so that's okay. I'm gonna ask this. So where I must be out of the loop on this because I didn't know he's big on Velveteen Dream. Like who has reported that he's big on Velveteen Dream?
Let me pull it up.
Because I like you, I've seen it on social media where people are just like, hey, this is a fantasy match, Velveteen and Cena, make it happen. And I'm just, all the while, I'm thinking, why? I mean, is this something, is Cena, like you said, is Cena big on Velveteen Dream? And I'm just not aware of it. But while Cole's looking that up, I'm just going to read a couple more comments. William says Alistair and Cena would be cool for Mania. Chosen Boy says I'm predicting Cena versus Velveteen Dream as well. So while he's looking that up, a couple other quick things. A couple of possible spoilers for the 2020 Hall of Fame. It's been rumored that Japanese wrestling legend Jushin Thunder Liger and the Bella Twins are going into this year's class of the Hall of Fame. With the XFL launch, McMahon has reportedly been at a distance from WWE ever since Thanksgiving. He'll catch maybe half of the Raw shows, according to... doesn't say who reported this, but he's actually been away a lot more from SmackDown. And, okay. So one other thing while you're looking that up. So, and I caught this live last night, but whenever the Young Bucks came out for that Tag Team Battle Royal tease or plug or whatever at the end, so the big schmaz at the end of the tag title match, whenever the Young Bucks came out, I don't know if you caught this, but JR dropped the term Bucks of Youth. So obviously it's going to lead to speculation that it was a tease on Matt Hardy, fueling the speculation that he's going to come in. So Meltzer speculated on the name drop and said that the mention could have something to do with Hardy, who has been the rumored leader of the Dark Order after he's done with WWE. Ross used the name drop during the segment at the end of the tag title match, and fans noted on Twitter that they believe this name drop had to do with Hardy, possibly as a quote-unquote Easter egg of some kind. Matt responded to various fans about how JR used the name. One of his comments said he wasn't aware of it. In all seriousness, I wouldn't be who I am without JR's assistance. He always has my blessing to use the term Bucks of Youth. And then JR responded, said, thanks, Matthew. Hope our paths cross again sooner than later. So, very interesting turn of events there, I'll call it. Chosen Boy says, Cena said it on stage at MegaCon Orlando.
Yeah, I just found it. Pro Wrestling, she said that he could be, or his exact statement is that the Dream could be the one. Like, he could be the next, one. It
kind of makes you wonder, though, if they're going to go that route. So you've got, less than 2 months until Mania. What do you do? Do you basically do you still have Dream, still have his program with Roderick Strong, but then do this I won't say on the side, but then have this as an alternate storyline as well because it's on a different show. It'd be interesting to see how they go about that, especially with Cena returning this week, tomorrow. Isn't it tomorrow is when he comes back on this week's SmackDown, or is it the following week?
I'd be interested to see if they're going to put him on SmackDown right now with Goldberg also being on there. I feel like he would end up on Raw.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just because there's no one really to compete on that.
If they're going to go the route with him having a program with Velveteen Dream, I almost think that you're going to have to put the Velveteen Dream and Roderick Strong program on hold because
yes and no, because if John Cena's coming back now, WrestleMania is still a far way away. You still have a lot of things that they're going to have Roderick Strong and them conclude that probably by Elimination Chamber.
Well, here's what makes sense about it to me though, because Velveteen Dream is literally just starting this program with Roderick Strong. Do you really have him start a second program as well at the same time? I could see if he had this program going on with Roderick Strong already for a few weeks or whatever, but this just started as well. William says he is on SmackDown on. Oh, okay. So he doesn't come back for a couple weeks. Okay.
So that makes sense.
That would make a little more sense then, because by then, Roderick Strong will have had his match with Velveteen Dream will have had his match with Roderick Strong, and it'd give it a couple weeks to kind of do its thing, run its course, maybe even conclude. Who knows? All right. So if you guys are on the stream right now, start letting us.
They can blow off that feud no one cares about.
If you're on the stream, let us know who is on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling. We are going to get to that shortly. But first,
promotional consideration paid for by the following.
I want to let you guys know you can check out the Going Broadway podcast with new shows every week on Apple Podcasts and Google Play, as well as a number of other platforms where you can access your podcasting, including accessing the website lineupmedia.fm. For those of you watching us live right now, each show is archived, and you can go back and watch any one of them on Facebook or via our YouTube channel as well. Go to goingbroadwaypodcast.com/YouTube and check us out. Please also download our free app. It's called Yo Radio. Excuse me. It can also be downloaded through the App Store or Google Play. Yo Radio is the most advanced user-driven streaming radio service on the market. Everything you would expect and more from the most full-featured platforms ever developed. Listen to an endless genre of music, podcasts, including our show via the Lineup channel, sports, news, and more 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and always 100% free. Again, that's Yo Radio, available via the App Store, Google Play, or by visiting yoradio.com. Also, please continue to share our page with your friends. We're going to be doing another shirt giveaway once we hit 500 likes, and then we're going to give away that free belt once we hit 1,000. Again, we appreciate all of the listenership and viewership and support. I mentioned earlier this week that between all of our platforms, so between Apple Podcasts, Google Play, lineupmedia.fm, Yo Radio, YouTube, we hit over 25,000 views and listens in just a little over a month's time. So, again, we thank you for that. We thank you for the support, and help us get to that 500 mark. Share it with your friends. Let them know that we're going to be doing some free giveaways. They don't even have to listen to our show. We have no way if they would listen or watch our show. I'm just going off of who has liked our page, and everyone that's liked our page is entered automatically. So share it with your friends, and we'll do that next giveaway once we hit 500. I think we're at 330 something right now, so a little ways to go, but we'll get there. All right, so we'll spend the next 10 or 15 minutes on who is on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling. So
this is so hard.
It's very hard. It's very hard. So I'm gonna go back to one of the first comments that someone left, and we can share ours at the end. Jim Johnson said that his is Ric Flair, Bruno Sammartino, Hulk Hogan, and Roddy Piper. Those are some interesting selections. Again, there's no right or wrong answer here. It all depends on when, what time frame you watched wrestling,
right?
What the time period is in which you grew up watching wrestling. Again, if you're on the stream, let us know who's on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling. We'll read your comments on the air. I had someone else comment, and let me find it real quick. Someone commented on a separate thread in another group that I'm in.
William just said Hogan, Flair, Macho Man, and The Rock.
So I think it's going to be pretty universal for the most part. Most people are going to have Hogan and or Flair on theirs, or both. I will say right off the bat, Hogan and Flair are definitely on mine. They're 2 of my 4. Someone in another group, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing his name, but he says, so Tay William, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. He says, Hogan, HBK, Cena, and Triple H. Again, there's not a right or wrong answer here. It's going to depend on when you grew up watching wrestling, what your history or knowledge of the history of wrestling is. But I agree. This was a really hard one for me to come up with. And do you want to share yours first, or?
So, like, I feel like I'm in the argument of kind of like the Michael Jordan versus LeBron James argument.
Exactly.
You could even say Kobe. Like, you're talking about different eras and then who they faced, where the company was at the time. There's just a lot of aspects that go into it for me. I feel like some of the ones I've read so far, like you have a lot of people from the past on there, but there are so many people that be after them who faced probably harder opponents, a different kind of crowd response,
right?
Different eras. Like LeBron, like Michael Jordan had to face so much harder talent than LeBron has ever had to face.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's reversed in this role. I think there wasn't as many great performers as there are now as far as in-ring performance.
Agreed.
And so now you have a lot of these guys who had to fight. Like, think of all the great performers who had to go up against John Cena.
Mm-hmm.
Think of all the great performers who had to go up against Triple H, The Rock. Like, that era had so many. That's why it took so long to get guys like Booker T to the top of the line. That's why it took so long to get guys like Edge to the top of the line. Even Christian. I mean, there were so many talented people in those eras that, like, it's really hard for me to narrow down, like, for sure, like, these are the 4, like, if you're talking all time. For me personally, Ric Flair is on mine, just because you can't deny somebody who has 16 championship reigns.
Right.
Okay? Like, Ric Flair has done so much for the business, and not to mention he has one of the most iconic, even though it's very simplistic, the Woo has just been one of the most iconic things to ever be in wrestling. Like, it's still to this day, even when there was no Charlotte Flair, people were shouting "woo" when people got smacked.
Yeah, every time someone gets chopped, regardless of the company. I mean, you can watch Ring of Honor, New Japan, NWA, AEW. Anytime someone gets a chop, the crowd chants "woo" every time. I mean, it's almost universal
because of how iconic he was. Not to mention it's in other sports. You know, the Colts were famous a couple years back of doing a woo chant in their locker room.
Mm-hmm.
So Ric Flair's on mine. I'm actually shockingly going to say that Hulk Hogan is not. And it's not because he wasn't iconic, because Hulk Hogan was iconic. He really hurt me when he came out and did some of the things he's done outside of wrestling.
Right.
And that just put a real bad taste in my mouth.
Sure.
And I felt like it hurt wrestling. It hurt a lot of fans. It made it really hard to bring him back in. And so, like, now I don't view him the same way that I did.
Understandable.
So Hulk Hogan is actually not on mine. The Rock is on mine, and The Rock to me is probably top 3 best to ever cut a promo. I told you I was actually watching Fighting with my family the other night, which is about Paige, and one of the scenes in the movie is her and her brother, when they get to their NXT tryout, they run into The Rock and they're asking The Rock an opinion, like, what should we do to stand out? And he goes right into his Rock gimmick. It doesn't matter what you think you're gonna do. Like, he talked about how when you're in wrestling, you are when I'm in wrestling, I'm The Rock and The Rock is me. He goes, it's me out there, but I'm portraying it in this way. And I loved that take on it. And so The Rock, like, not only was he a good in-ring performer, but he's, to me, probably one of the best to ever grab a mic, to ever have a character or a storyline. He was universal in being able to switch back and forth from being heel to face.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, mine would be Ric Flair, The Rock. I'm going to say it. People are going to hate me. John Cena is on mine. I know a lot of people hate John Cena because he was force-fed down your mouth. But let's not forget about all those years that you cheered for him. All right? Because, like, there was so many years that we got John Cena as a face that it got stale. I get it. But he was my Hulk Hogan. All right? Like, he was my Ric Flair.
Exactly.
He was at the age that I got to watch wrestling, he was the face, and he also has 16 championship belts. Okay? Like, so
I'm gonna stop you for a second. Just small segue. Do you think they bring him back and he wins 17?
Yes. Well, 100, and I want him to do it as a heel. I want him to come back.
I would love that if he came back as a cool heel.
Well, there's no such thing for him right now. He's so stale. Like, people just don't like him.
I don't know. So he came back and did his Thugonomics thing with Elias at Mania a year or two ago. Something like that. Because fans loved that. I mean, he legit got cheered at WrestleMania, and the cheering built as he did that promo with Elias.
Was that because it was Elias, though? Like, they just wanted to cheer anybody against Elias because he was
I don't think so. I think
heel.
I think because it was – I think a lot of it was because it was expected that Cena was going to make some sort of cameo at WrestleMania, but it was not expected that he'd be in a Thugonomics gimmick. And, he was a bit edgier – obviously with that gimmick, and it was different. People expected Cena to be in his normal, hustle, loyalty, respect thing, but he wasn't. So
I'm cool with it. So here's my thoughts would be is he would be the one that takes the belt off Drew McIntyre once Drew wins it. I can
see that.
I would be okay with that, but he would have to go as a heel. And I'm okay with that because people are going to hate the fact that he's going to win the belt off Drew, which is fine with me. He needs to win the belt. He needs to be the one holding the record now.
I think you do have him win a 17th because especially if WWE starts distancing itself from Flair, because I know Ric Flair has had legal issues with WWE and copyright, trademark, whatever infringements, so they might try to pull the thing they did with Demolition in the tag titles. They took the longest reigning record off of them and let the New Day have it because there was some kind of stuff going on behind the scenes or whatever. But I'll let you share your fourth in a second. We've actually got a couple more people that have joined the stream. We're sharing our Mount Rushmore of wrestling and our opinion who is on it. So if you've joined us and you're on the stream, share with us who is on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling. There's no right or wrong answers. Vincent LaPointe, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. He says, I think Bret Hart was the greatest overall, but he just missed a little bit of charisma. William says Cena will win one last championship as The Rock did on his last championship run. Chosen Boy says, with him being given creative freedom with his return and him stating in the past that he wanted to turn heel, have we considered he may be returned to finally have the heel run he wanted?
That's my thoughts exactly.
Could be.
And I'll say this. The thing about John Cena is he's headed into acting. I mean, like, that's where obviously he's going to end up, right? So you have no concerns about him hurting WWE in any form or fashion.
Agreed.
He's not going to go to AEW. He's not going to go fight in other promotions.
If there's ever been a WWE lifer, it is John Cena. 100%.
Even The Rock. Like, The Rock, he did what he needed to do for the company. He got big. He went into acting, and he comes back and honors WWE every so often, does some promos, hits a rock bottom, and then exits and goes back to Hollywood.
Right.
John Cena, give him one last run, let him win the belt, and let him carry that legacy on beyond Flair. Doesn't hurt Flair if he beats it. It doesn't make Flair less iconic. Yes, he is the heel in the new Fast and Furious movie, which would be perfect for him to come in and be a heel in wrestling as well. John Cena's on there. So for me, it's Ric Flair, it's The Rock, it's John Cena. And then I have to, this was so hard, and I got torn between two when I really got down to it. My last one comes down between Triple H and The Undertaker.
Really? That is not who I thought you were going to say.
Stone Cold's in there.
That's who I thought you were going to go
But
with.
Stone Cold, to me, I don't think he would end up on too many's Mount Rushmore because Stone Cold, he did whatever he needed, which I think sometimes hurt him at the time of the company. Wherever he needed to go and whatever he needed to do, he did it. And but I love Stone Cold. This is why it's so hard. The only reason why I say Undertaker and Triple H, though, is when you put careers up against each other. Undertaker had the WrestleMania streak. Undertaker was known as the dead man. He could resurrect. He did the buried alive matches, the casket matches. Like there's a lot that comes with Undertaker's career that is very prominent in WWE history. But Triple H is the guy, all right? Like Triple H is responsible for helping out with D-Generation X, with Evolution, with the Authority storyline, with Seth Rollins getting bigger. Not only Randy Orton, Batista, Triple H has built a lot of guys. He's responsible for NXT. I mean, like there's just so much that Triple H has done, not only in his own wrestling career with all the different storylines, heel, face, tag teams, factions. There's just so much that I lean more Triple H. So for me, it's Ric Flair, it's The Rock, it's John Cena, and it's Triple H. And this took I spent you messaged me a couple of days ago about this, and I was like, mine might ever be interchanging. Because, there's just...
Oh, for sure.
If I could have a mountain of, 10 guys, it'd be a lot easier to narrow down. But when you get down to 4 people, there's, 2 that really stand out to me, and then it kind of gets a little harder to pick from there.
Yeah,
but those would agree. And again, that's my generation too. I didn't get to watch Hulk Hogan. Stone Cold, I came in on the end of Stone Cold. And I don't remember him as much as I remember The Rock.
Yeah, I hear you. Vincent says, everybody knows that Ric Flair has more than 16 world championships under his belt, so I don't care if Cena wins another one. Yeah, I mean, for those of you that don't know, it's been disputed how many official times he's been champion, because there are a few that are quote unquote unrecognized title changes, whether he's traded the belt with someone at foreign events back in the 80s or whatever. It's been speculated that he has as many as I think 20, it's in the lower 20s or mid 20s, 23, 24 championships, but yeah, it is what it is. Andre Thomas says, Triple H may be the most respected man in the business today. 100% agree. All right, so my Mount Rushmore is going to surprise some people. And I won't go into details. Well, let's put it this way. I won't go into too many details with a couple of them. So Ric Flair is on mine. Hulk Hogan is on mine. Without those two, I hesitate to say that the world of wrestling would be the way it is today. I think inevitably, you might have guys that were charismatic enough to build the world of wrestling as it is today, as it was in the early 2000s, as it was in the 90s, as it was in the 80s. So I actually went back and forth with 3 guys. So here's my honorable mention. My honorable mention, who's not on it, is Andre the Giant. So if you go back in the 70s and 80s, I feel like that even with the degree that we have so many ways to access prior matches, prior companies, interviews, and you've got the WWE Network, you've got YouTube, all these different media outlets, or that's not the right word, various ways of accessing historical wrestling, just historical wrestling videos, whether it's matches, promos, whatever. Andre the Giant, I still feel like is his his presence in the world of wrestling and his mark on it is still, I think, very severely underrated and probably always will be. You know, he was one of the most over faces in wrestling before, you know, there was WWE or WWF or whatever. Vincent says, yes, AA on the Rock, the greatest on the microphone. As far as Andre the Giant goes, yeah, I feel like he and Hogan still had the biggest match in the history of pro wrestling at WrestleMania 3. Again, that's kind of like comparing, you know, Michael Jordan to LeBron or Kobe or whatever. You can equate it however you want to any sport, any athlete. So Andre gets my honorable mention. Here are my other two, and I think one or both might surprise you. You being you, and you being our listener or viewer. So one of them is Chris Jericho.
That doesn't surprise me. Actually.
So he has reinvented himself far more times than anybody else in the history of pro wrestling. I mean, I probably can't count on both hands the number of gimmicks he has had going back to his days in, even prior to WCW, whenever he was in ECW. You know, he was in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. He wrestled in Japan. He was and up until recently in his older years has always been good in the ring. But it's most important to me that he's able to reinvent himself either individually or as tag teams or in stables. And it's gotten over every time as a face or a heel. He has figured out a way to reinvent himself. Uh-oh.
Joseph would say he's reinvented himself almost as much as the Big Show's turns.
No, Big Show, no. Not Big Show will forever have the record in terms of...
It's just fun. That's funny.
I mean, there's a YouTube video out there that has gone through every single Big Show face and heel turn. I think it's in the 40s.
Like every time, every show, it's like you're on a week-by-week basis.
Pretty much. Well, and by the way, that YouTube video, that's just WWE turns. I don't think that's even including WCW. No, that comment's hilarious. I agree, though. I mean, that's Big Show's turns have been ridiculous over the years.
Oh man. No, but honestly, though, Jericho is the one guy I think that no matter what promotion he's gone to, what spot on the card he's been given, what gimmick he's been told to run, he gets over.
Agreed. I mean, and you can't not mention the fact that he's had 2 successful wrestling cruises. He's going to have a third. I think that's going to be a regular annual fixture as far as AEW goes.
Not to mention he's successful outside of the ring. He has a successful rock band.
He's in a successful band. He's got a successful podcast himself.
A little bit of the bubbly.
Merchandising, anything that he has touched has turned to gold. Not to be cliche, but it really has. William says Sting is an honorable mention. He is an honorable mention. I will give you that. I think Sting might be...
The way his career unfolded hurt him. Because he spent so many years in Impact, and
I agree,
and the side he took when the wars were going on, and he came back to WWE so late, and there's just that hurt him.
I would put Sting as he
would be in my top 10 probably.
I was about to say I'd put him as a minor honorable mention. He might make my top 10, but honestly, I'd put guys like Randy Orton above him. In my opinion,
That's tough,
Randy Orton wouldn't.
If you watched Impact, you would know that Sting was there. But Impact just wasn't where AEW is even at right now.
Agreed.
He never got there.
Yeah, Randy Orton, I would say, would easily make my top 10. Sting, I don't know.
I would put Kurt Angle over him. Kurt Angle, to me,
probably
would end up over him. Randy Orton's not done yet, so I just don't know where he ends up on my list.
I mean, Undertaker, I think I'd put him above Sting. I would put Triple H above Sting. I'd put Austin above Sting. So I don't know if Sting would make my top 10. Here's my fourth. And I don't think anybody I've ever seen has put this person in their
Baron Corbin.
No,
I'm just kidding.
Good grief! I don't think I've seen anybody put this in their Mount Rushmore of pro wrestling.
He said Dusty Rhodes for top 10. I could see that. Maybe.
Probably. He'd be close. Here's my fourth. Vince McMahon.
No, I get it.
You don't have wrestling as it is today in terms of a global single company without Vince McMahon, because back in the day, you got to remember, you just had wrestling territories. Before WWE or before WWF, you had territorial wrestling. You had it was WWF at the time in the Northeast. You had Mid-Atlantic Wrestling in the Carolinas. You had Championship Wrestling from Florida. You had Continental Wrestling. You had AWA. You had what else is out there? You had St. Louis Wrestling here locally. You had big time wrestling in Detroit. You had WCCW, World Class in Texas. You had I'm trying to think. You had Portland Wrestling out west. There's another company in California. The point is, you had territory after territory after territory, but then McMahon wanted to form this big conglomerate and started buying out talent from these territories, and eventually what became WWF. And granted, he stepped on a lot of promoters' toes and made a lot of people mad over the years, but he's also made a lot of money and built a successful company pretty much from scratch.
That's lasted.
Exactly. I mean, if you were to go back, so this started in the early 80s, and if you were to go back in the early 80s and said, 50 years from now, this company will still be thriving. Well, is that 50 years? What's my math on that? So 83, 93, 2003. Okay, about 40 years. If you were to say this company will be thriving 40 years from now, I wouldn't agree or disagree. I'd be skeptical. But, I mean, to their credit, they're still around. They're still very profitable. They're everywhere on TV. They're everywhere on social media. They're everywhere.
You know who most of those people are. Like the top guys in wrestling. If you don't watch wrestling, you've heard of them.
Yeah, exactly. You've heard of Vince McMahon. You've heard of Flair, Cena, Hogan, Triple H, Undertaker.
I would even venture to say currently now you've heard some of the bigger names that are currently in the product too, though. I would
exactly, and that speaks to how
they're on award shows. They're
right.
in music video. You know, like they're all around, and so
it's no longer just the upper card guys. I mean, you've got guys that are doing award shows, like unfortunately Baron Corbin. You've got guys like Dolph Ziggler.
I mean, Jimmy Fallon literally had Braun Strowman, Drew McIntyre.
Right.
So
Alexa Bliss.
That's a great, like, Vince McMahon obviously has done a ton, but I want to ask you this. If you were to take Vince off your Rushmore and go purely from a wrestling standpoint of wrestler.
Vince McMahon wrestled. I know what you're going.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, because he's obviously, like, if you're talking about as far as what they've done for the business, Vince would obviously have to be on your Mount Rushmore.
Exactly.
If you were to go purely wrestling, though, who would take
purely
Vince's
wrestling?
spot?
So if we're going purely wrestling, we'd have to go Flair, Hogan, Jericho, and
hate to put you on the spot, but
this is a tough one. I mean, probably Andre. I mean, he was my honorable mention. I'd probably put him fourth.
Oh, okay.
So, all right. We're going to wrap it up for this show. If you're still on the stream with us, thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you're watching or listening to this later, thank you as well. We will be back Monday at 9 a.m. Central Time. We'll recap tomorrow's SmackDown. I don't know if there's really any more to recap. I don't know if there's anything else going on over the weekend or not.
TakeOver.
Oh, yeah. I knew there was something. So we'll recap Sunday night's TakeOver, which is weird. I still find it weird it's not a Sunday night, not Saturday. I mean, I get that it's not paired with a WWE pay-per-view. I still think it's just weird. But Vincent, William, thank you guys for tuning in with us.
Chosen Boy.
I appreciate it. Chosen Boy, thank you. Everyone else, I'm sure I'm probably missing somebody that's joined us and commented. But yeah, shout out to you guys. Jim Johnson, thank you. Austin, thank you. Josh Wolf, thank you. John Bowles, thank you. We appreciate you guys. Share our page with your friends. Again, help us to get to that 500 likes mark. We'll do our next giveaway at that point. We'll do our next giveaway after that at 1,000 once we give that free belt away. I'm anxious to give it away because right now it's just taking up space in my office and just sitting there looking pretty, and it needs an owner. So, until Monday.
And so, goodbye. Mwah. And good night. Bang!
This podcast was a presentation of LightUpMedia.fm.